part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.
Welcome to the Lord Be With You podcast show, also known as Christian Fandom Geek on YouTube, the best stories of our age from a Christian point of view. If you are living on planet Earth, you will know what's been going on recently with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a very popular podcaster on Spotify and on other platforms, probably the world's most famous and probably has the biggest podcast in the whole world. And he's on an obscene amount of money from Spotify because it justifies how popular his podcast is. It has a huge amount of downloads. Maybe one day Christian Fandom Geek and the Lord Be With You podcast show will get to there, but that's a journey that we're on right now. Anyway, you will know that Joe Rogan has been mentioned to do with an N-word controversy, and I'm going to go into that on this episode. And this episode is going to be a bit of a pro and against argument. So I'm going to try and be as objective as possible in this argument about Joe Rogan, which is obviously difficult because matters like race are really close to the heart. And as a young black guy myself, I would broadly say that I'm a Joe Rogan fan in the sense of his work that he's done in MMA with the UFC. I really enjoyed him as a commentator on that. And I've watched some interesting episodes of his podcast even before this stuff with Paul Stamets to do with mushrooms and even ones to do with ayahuasca. He's got some really interesting ideas and I remember his podcast episode even with Sean Carroll, who is a cosmologist, and I like a lot of his stuff. Having said that, what's happened over the last week or so has been really disappointing to come across. But I'm going to attempt to be as objective as possible in this. So coming up now, there's going to be a part 1 and a part 2 of this, but it's going to be on this video. Part 1 is going to be a more sympathetic view towards Joe Rogan, and part 2 will be more critical, coming against what some of the things that he said. So it is Christian Fandom Geek versus Joe Rogan. So get ready, relax, and get ready for this episode right now on the Lord Be With You podcast show. Okay, so here's part 1. Joe Rogan, this is to you, but this is also to I've got some great supporters of the show who are very engaging on Red 5 and on the Fandom Collective, and I know you guys, and also on the Christian Facebook group as well. I know you guys will have your own opinions on this, and I know this is really emotive stuff, as some of you will be passionately for Joe Rogan and some of you will be passionately against Joe Rogan for what's happened. Now obviously, if you're for Joe Rogan, I don't believe it's because you're a racist. Let me just say that straight away. Let me just get that out there. I think a lot of people will be supporting Joe Rogan because they're supporting free speech, and they will see this as a blatant attack on free speech, trying to deplatform Joe Rogan because of things that he's said years ago, which would be potentially out of context and being used in a sort of manipulative way, potentially by left-wing groups or very liberal think tanks or individuals that are deliberately trying to deplatform Joe Rogan. So I think a lot of you who are Joe Rogan fans or just supporting Joe based on the situation will be saying that, look, we're not supporting what he said, not for a second, but a lot of it could be out of context, and even if it's not out of context, he has apologized, and that is a really big thing. He's put his hand on his heart, he's come out with an apology that looks very sincere and very real and to the heart, and he knows he's wrong. He knows he shouldn't be using the N-word. He shouldn't have used the N-word probably in any context, but certainly in the ways that he's used it, it's a situation really where he has apologized and he said, look, it's not my word to use. I won't be using it again. I haven't said it for you. And the things that are on this compilation, even I can't believe. It looks really horrendous that I've been saying these things, and even I think it's like, oh my gosh, and he's also said he's deleted those episodes as well. So it does seem to be that he's recognised he shouldn't have done it. He's apologised for it from the heart. He's recognised that he shouldn't do it. He's not going to do that again. So why should we delete him out of existence? Why should we deplatform him? Why should Spotify, say, no, we're done with you? We're living in an age of, how would you say, quite pretentiousness, where everyone wants to virtue signal and say, everyone wants to get on their soapbox, on their high horse and say, you're wrong, I'm right, we're the heroes, you're the villain. And actually, sometimes that can be the case, sometimes that's appropriate, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is an attack on free speech, and it is kind of political games and pandering. And you have to be very careful when it comes to things like these, guys. You have to be very careful, honestly, because it can be a situation where it's people that are pulling the strings because they're trying to cause racial division, or they're trying to blow things out of proportion to bring about a kind of spirit of discord amongst the community. We want to have a community that's unified, that is treating each other with love and respect, just like Martin Luther King said, the great Martin Luther King, treating people by the contents of their character, not by the colour of their skin. But also, shouldn't we have a culture that has some kind of grace and forgiveness? Especially if we're thinking from a religious or a Christian point of view. Nobody's perfect. The Bible says in the book of Romans, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so we really need to have more of a spirit of grace amongst us, that people, including celebrities, including high-level podcasters, will make mistakes and do things that are wrong, will sometimes fall short of our expectations, and when they apologize, when they ask for forgiveness, we need to be willing to forgive, especially if they change their ways and learn from their mistakes and are not continuing to make the mistakes that they did previously. So in that respect, I would say that, yes, there is an agenda against Joe Rogan to deplatform him. It's what I call the delete imperative. And it's happened to a lot of famous people and a lot of influencers that are living almost in a spirit of fear. And the Bible says that, do not live in a spirit of fear. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. God does not call us to live in fear or to live in a spirit of fear. And that's what seems to be happening right now, that there's a spirit of fear that you could be caught out, you could be next. And if you're caught out, then you're going to get deplatformed, and the delete imperative is coming for you. So, is it right? Do we want to live in a society and a culture that is dictated to by this kind of behaviour? Do we want to live by these kind of mandates? And is it morally right as well? And I would say that there are certainly issues to unpack here, and that certainly if Joe Rogan has asked for forgiveness in a genuine and a real and sincere way, which it comes across like he has done, then we need to be ready to forgive, especially if we protest to be people who are religious.
And we didn't know where we were going. We just got dropped off by a cab, and we got dropped off in this all-black neighborhood. And I was trying to make the story entertaining, and I said we got out, and it was like we were in Africa. It's like we were in Planet of the Apes. I did not, nor would I ever say that black people are apes, but it sure fucking sounded like that. And I immediately afterwards said, that's a racist thing to say. Planet of the Apes wasn't even in Africa. I was just saying there's a lot of black people there. But then I went on to talk what a positive experience it was and how much fun it was to go to see this movie in a black neighborhood. It wasn't a racist story, but it sounded terrible. And like I said, you can have clunky stories about anything, but not about race.